Hey, Julia, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Giulia Lagomarsino, and I started writing in 2017, and I loved it so much. I had no formal training or anything. I just really loved it, and it was actually on a bet from my husband. I was bored at home with three kids, not bored, but more thinking toward the future. What do I do when the kids go off to school? And my grand idea was I'm going to donate plasma because you can make $500 a month doing that. And I was really excited. And when I told my husband, he's Slovak, so you can imagine his like stern Eastern European expression. And he was like, "No, write a book, write a blog." And so I was like, "Okay, challenge accepted." So I went and wrote a book, and I loved it. And all these side characters showed up, and I just kept going. And I loved it. And I don't think I stopped writing for a year and a half. And that was when I took my first break. So it might have been closer to 2 years, actually. So, yeah, that was that. That was my big start and how I got going.
Love that. I would love if you could tell us what your books are about.
Well, I have five different series right now and one standalone. Um, I started off with small town romance, and then I shifted to security romance with spinoff characters. And I really wanted to keep things mixed up because I like to read multiple genres. I don't, it's like if you read a security series and they might all be the same storyline, because they're so focused on security, or small town and they're all just strictly small town. And um, not not that that's bad. It's just not the way I wanted it. And you got to write what you like. And so I wrote the first one as a comedy, and then I was like, "Ooh, I want to write a thriller." And then the next one, I was like, "Ooh, revenge romance." I'm not even sure if that's a thing or if I just made it up, but um, I went with it. And I just kept changing up. And so even when you get to my security series, the security series is how all the characters are tied together. But some are heavy on the security and the protection, and others are, like one is heavily focused on breast cancer and very detailed. I had a friend that had breast cancer, so I used her as inspiration for the book. And I just kept going with that. And so I kind of flip back and forth between small town and security, depending on what I'm in the mood for.
Love that. What inspired you to write your books?
Um, well, like I said, when I started, it was just my husband telling me to write one, and it was just the challenge of it. Um, Now it's really all the side characters. I when I started writing my OPS series, which is the one I'm currently on, it was maybe 12 books long, and the list right now is up to like 31 or 32, because every time I introduce a new character, like a heroine, or just I see a picture. My A photographer that I use quite a bit, Reggie Deanching, he took these photos of this guy in a pink shirt with a cigar hanging out of his mouth and sunglasses, and he had this like bamboo hat on, and I was like, I could make a character out of that. And so, I went ahead and had a cover made, and his book is I'm going to be writing soon. And so it's just all those little side characters that, they catch you, and you're like, "Ooh, this could be really good." And sometimes it's not even the storyline, it's their personality, or just even one little tick that they have. And you're like, "Ooh, that one little tick written into a book. That's great." And that's all you have to go on. Nothing else, just, the vein that throbs in his head or something, which is, kind of ridiculous, but it gives me a sense of who these characters are, and I just can't stop.
Love that. When you were writing your books, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your books are for?
Honestly, they're for me. Um, I don't are you talking like who are they dedicated to, or are you talking about readers?
More readers.
Okay. Um, yeah, they're still for me. That's really probably not the answer people are looking for. Um, they're geared toward probably mid 30s, 40s women, but honestly, I get a lot of 55 plus people that contact me. And so they're probably more geared toward them. Um, but I write for me. I write what I like. So it's always about what I want to come, not what the readers expect.
Love that. Since you brought up dedications, do you have a specific way you do them?
No, in fact, I hate the dedication part unless it's something that really stands out for me. With the breast cancer book, I, asked my readers, is there anyone that you has dealt with cancer that you would like to dedicate this book to? And so that was meaningful. But other than that, you can only write to my husband so many times. I write a book a month. It The dedications get tired. So now this is something that my readers don't know yet. So in this series, I've been dedicating all of my books to animals. So when it first started, I dedicated it to Hunter, my cat. And everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, I need to know who Hunter is." It was so funny that I just kept going with it. So, I had a lot of animals growing up. And so I continue with that. And some of them are really weird names, like I had a cat named Patahesta. It was like a Native American Indian game. And I named my cat that. And so I continued on with that. And hopefully readers will catch on eventually that these are not all human names. So it'll be interesting.
I love that. I always wondered when I was reading the beginning of the book, I was like, oh, that's a unique name.
Yeah.
But I know you touched on this, but how long have you been writing and what made you really sit down and start?
Well, it was the summer of 2017. And like I said, it was mostly because I needed some purpose in life. Um, I loved having kids. I loved staying home with them, but the more I thought about it, I was like, I I can't sit around the house crocheting for the rest of my life. I loved crochet. It's wonderful. Arts and crafts are wonderful. Um, but I really wanted to do something, get back out there and earn some money. And that was really the driving force behind finding something to do. Um, so when I started and I released my first book, I really had no clue what I was doing. I didn't have any author friends. I hit that upload button on KDP and I thought, I'm going to wake up tomorrow with $500 in my bank account. And I did not. In fact, the first year, I made something like $33, and it was all from me, buying ebooks or buying paperbacks, something like that, just so I would have them. And, um, and it wasn't until I learned how to use Facebook ads that I really learned how to market myself. And so from that point on, when I started, finally earning some money, I said, okay, you have 6 years until the twins go off to school. My kids have late September birthdays. So, they would be turning 6 when they went into kindergarten. So gave myself 6 years and said, if you don't make it by then, you find another job. And that really fueled me to keep writing and and then when people did start reading, um, of course, there were people that didn't like my books. There were also people that loved them. And I just kept learning from everything that was said. And kept improving. I think you can definitely tell a difference from when I started to where I am now, and that will continue as I grow. Um, and so, yeah, I just kind of took that as a challenge of this is how long you have to make something of yourself. And I was not disappointed. I actually, turned it into a business. Most authors do eventually. And so that was a very proud moment for me that I was able to not only make a successful career for myself, but turn it into a business that my husband and I have. And um, it fuels me on every day. It doesn't feel so much like a job. It's something I'm very passionate about, something I love. And so that's really nice because I've only ever had jobs that I needed to have. So it's my dream come true.
Love that so much. What is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
Well, I'm pretty much always writing a book. I take a break twice a year, um, usually for a couple weeks to a month that I give myself off, just to kind of reset and get ready for whatever's next. Um, Usually my schedules are pretty hectic. Get up, write 4 or 5,000 words a day. Then check my ads, check my marketing, do business related things. And in between that, take a break and go walk outside. I just moved to Georgia this summer and I moved from Minnesota. And anybody in Minnesota knows how cold it is. And I was tired of it. So we moved down here. I also dealt with a lot of like the winter blues. And I I went through this like 9 months of just feeling like, how am I going to get through another winter? So I'm down here now. It's late October and it's a high of 80 degrees today, and it just really makes life so much better. And so I do push myself to get out more. I go ride bikes to take a break and clear my head. And but it's you gotta stay inside some so that you don't enjoy the sun too much because it's hard to come back inside. But yeah, I do a lot of writing. Actually, right now I'm finishing up an old book, my last book, and also writing another book. Um, Sometimes that happens when I'm on a schedule. Um, so I was supposed to finish this book 2 weeks ago, and I'm finishing it today for my editor. And then I'm 2 weeks into my next book also. So it's a little bit of a juggle.
Love that. And yes, I can say we're in North Dakota, so I feel the Minnesota weather.
North Dakota is probably worse than Minnesota.
Potentially. Um, what do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
Quiet. I mean, I can listen to music. I can, um, a lot of the times I'll put music on repeat, like a song that I really like, but it's something that if I listen to it enough, I stop singing along and can focus on the book. It usually has something to do with the scene I'm writing. So if it's an action scene, I love to listen to Sam Tinez. If it's a love scene, I'll put on something sexy, Alicia Keys. Um, I love listening to 80s music. That always gets me in the mood, but sometimes I sing along too much. Um, Mostly, though, I try and stay away from everyone else. I actually have an office in this house. My last house, my office was in the living room. And it was hard because if the TV was on, if the kids were around, it's just hard to distract yourself from that. So yeah, now I can see out my window and um, close myself off from everyone else, and that usually keeps me on track.
Love that so much. What is your favorite writing snack or drink?
I don't snack while I eat, mostly because I'm very anal about my keyboard staying clean. And Well, that, and it's hard to stay on track with typing. I I type pretty fast, and so reaching over to grab a snack, it interrupts my flow. So I do not snack at the computer. I always take my break and go sit in the other room and eat. But I always have a cup of ice water with me. I'm addicted to water, so that's normally what I drink.
Love that. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
Anything that I don't write. I find that if I am reading a protector romance or a small town romance, um, I worry that I'll start criticizing the book. Like, that's not the way I would have written it, you know? And you, as a writer, you always worry that you might accidentally take something that you've read and twist it into your own version, which still happens. Stories have been told over and over again. Um, Look at Cinderella, how many spin-offs of that there have been. It's bound to happen. But I try and distance myself from that as much as possible. Um, I love reading dark romance, MC, mafia, occasionally a good bully romance. I just, I kind of fall for anything. I even love paranormal. The only thing is, I'm one of those readers that you have to catch me on that first page or two. And if you don't, I won't read it. And I think that's mostly because I'm so busy during the day. Um, I need a book that captures my attention right away. Otherwise, it's like, well, don't waste your time trying to read something that you can't get into. Um, I don't mean that to sound snobby or anything. There are probably a ton of books that I've passed over, and it's not the writing. It's just my mindset, all of that kind of stuff. And then also, I only read first person. I used to read third person. It just, I don't know, something about third person. When I started writing, I couldn't imagine myself as the character as much. And first person really helped me with that. So if I go back and I do a reread of my favorite series that are in third person, it's no problem. But if it's a new book, I can't get into it.
Love that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I have always loved reading. I think it's just romance books in general. I love to read all sorts of different books. I love Harry Potter and Dan Brown and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. That series, I just loved it. I watched the movie, the first movie, and was like, oh, I have to know what else happens. Um, so all of those books really put me in the mood to read. Um, I think what I loved about romance books, though, were just the, I don't know, it's hard to say. It's something like how the characters, you're building a love story. It's not just, I don't know, with suspense, mystery books. I've written mystery books, I've written suspense and all that. They're very, you have to really develop them a lot. Not that you don't have to develop romance books, but like with mystery books, there are all these details that you have to work into the plot um, to make the mystery unfold. And it's a lot of working out stuff that is kind of hard to do on a time frame of 1 month. And keep it flowing, keep it going. And so a romance book, it's just about the development of the characters and how they fall in love. And it's not as detailed on these tiny little things that could be, upending the plot. So I think that's kind of why I chose that, just because I like the simplicity of it. How it's, romance books are, they've been around for so long, and yeah, you've probably read them all 100 million times before. There's so many, but it's the way it's told, it's the flow of it, it's just how easy it can be. And when I say easy, I don't mean like, oh, it's so simple for writers. I mean, it's just the flow of it is, I don't know how else to describe it. I don't know, just very easygoing, if that makes sense.
Yes, love that. What type of books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
um, I don't remember what books I read when I was little. I do remember one particular Christmas that I sat in front of the fire um, the whole Christmas and read this book. I don't even remember what it was about, something about witches. I just remember that as like a really great memory, just um, great way to spend Christmas vacation. And then when I was older, I read Richie Tankersley Cusick. And I don't know if you know who that is. She wrote young adult, high school level. The heroine was like 17 or 18 years old, and there was some mystery. There was one book called Overdue, and, she worked in the library, and um, there were, these characters, one that she knew really well that she worked with, but he was so quiet, and another man that appeared and she didn't know much about him. And, someone died, and the mystery just, I honestly, I'd have to read it again to really remember all about it. But I just remember it really gripped my attention. That first kind of, for a kid, I didn't know a lot about romance. My mom did not really talk about that stuff with us, so it was like this kind of dark secret, this romance building, and it really intrigued me. Maybe that's why I like to write romance. I have no idea, but those were the books I liked.
Love that so much. On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if they come out with something, you automatically grab it?
Um, Romance books, that's hard to say because I do like a lot of them, but it's one of those things where I'll go back through my already read, or whatever you call it, my list, and I'll go, what was that book? And the worst part is when they're in Kindle Unlimited and you can't remember what you read. Um, so romance books are hard to say. I will say I'll read anything by J.K. Rowling. I love her books. I'll read anything by Dan Brown. Um, I really love his books. Um, Mostly I reread. I go through a lot of Jane Austen over and over again. I love those books. So, yeah, but honestly, the time for reading is, uh, I don't have very much time for reading anymore. So that's why I tend to reread. Um, so kind of, and then I also have to reread my books. When you have a series that's like Reed Security was 27 books long. So when I would get further down the line, I would go back and reread my books to remind myself of the details that I might be missing. And I do the same thing with OPS. So yeah, it kind of cuts into my reading time.
Love that. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
I would say read what you really like, and don't let others bash you for what you like to read. I know some people like really dark stuff. I remember reading a book. I can't remember what it was. It was the most twisted romance I've ever read. Very, very dark. And it kept me captivated the whole time. It's not a book I would ever write, just because it was about like murder and sex and stuff like that. But I just couldn't put it down. It was so good. Um, so I would say, yeah, find what you like and just go for it. And who cares what you're reading? Just go with it.
Love that. On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
Be true to yourself. It's very easy to let other authors, or readers tell you how you should write, whether it comes to your style. Um, a lot of readers don't like people that write books that don't end in an HEA. Um, and a lot of authors really don't like authors that write romance that doesn't end in an HEA. I did not find that out until way after I wrote my first book that didn't end in an HEA. And yeah, a lot of people were upset, but um, the overwhelming response I got from that book was that it was heart wrenching. They loved it. And it really just made me realize that if you build a good brand for yourself, if you write stories that people truly love and care about, your readers will stick with you. Yeah, you might lose some if it's something like you kill off someone that they love. Um, but there's always this strong possibility, this overwhelming possibility that your readers will stick by you because they love what you write. So there's definitely that. And then also, along with writing the way you want, is, tell stories that are meaningful to you. And whether that's um, stories that involve a lot of humor or sad books. My sarcastic side comes out in all of my books. There's only a few books I've written where they're primarily um, sad or just really serious. And I do love to write those books. I like it when you can really pull a reader's emotions in that way. Um, but I love humor. I love making people laugh. And so I would say find what works for you and stick with that and don't let people sway you.
Love that. So this is an off script question. So you get the
Hmm.
option to answer or not.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite book that you've written?
Oh, that's a hard one. A favorite book that I've written. Um, I love Ace Magnets. That was in my Good Run of Bad Luck series. Um, and it was featuring Corduroy and his femme fatale. Gosh, I can't even remember her name now. And see, this is what's wrong when you write so many books. Um, but I loved that book. She was just this total schizo kind of girl. She just was a mess all over the place. And he was fighting it so much. I love that book. I also love Irish. It was actually an idea my sister came up with that I should write about this girl who thinks this guy is a superhero. And honestly, I rewrote that book probably 4 or 5 times. It was so difficult to get the balance right between, okay, she's a librarian and her imagination is running away with her, and not tipping over that line to she's crazy, so that was a really fun book to read. And while it was frustrating at the time to get it right, it turns out to be one of my absolute favorites.
Love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that I really have an answer for that. That's a hard one. I am not a very outgoing person. Um, I can be friendly enough. I try to really be friendly, um, but I'm very introverted. For a long time, I've dealt with terrible social anxiety. Up until maybe a year and a half ago, I couldn't go out to eat at restaurants. I some Everybody's anxiety hits them in a different way. Mine always was worse in any public setting where it's not socially acceptable to just get up and leave. I felt trapped. I felt like I had to be there or everyone would be watching me. And it just so happens that my anxiety hit me in a way that when I started getting worked up, I would get nauseous and the smell of food would make me want to throw up. And so being in a restaurant not only was the social setting it also hit me in that other way. And it got to the point where it didn't matter where I was. I didn't even have to smell food. I would just feel like I was going to throw up. So um, I spent that with it got really bad in 2010, and I started, getting some help for it. Um, and it would get better, and then it would get worse. And I finally found something that helped me just to kind of stay level. And from there, I was able to force myself to go out and do things. And now, I go to restaurants all the time and it doesn't bother me. I go out places and do things that I wouldn't normally do. Um, when people meet me, they usually assume that I'm just naturally bubbly and full of life and all that. And it really has more to do with how comfortable I am with a person. Meeting someone in person for the first time is always very difficult for me, unless we from the start have very similar personalities. So I may come off as very shy. Some people see that as, you know, being a snob or something like that. They think I'm too good to talk to them. And it's actually just that I fumble over words. I don't know what to say. Um, Tell me how many people have done this. They walk up to someone and they try and say what they're meaning to say, and it comes out totally wrong. It sounds like an insult. You get nervous, you try and correct it, and it comes out twice as bad. And that's why I keep my mouth shut. it just goes totally wrong. So yeah, that's probably something people don't know about me.
Love that. Love what you've overcome as well.
It was hard, but I made it.
Is there anything you would like to say or add?
Um, Read my books. No. I would say I'm just very blessed. Um, there aren't many people in life that get to find something that makes them feel so whole. Um, and something they love to wake up every morning and go do. Um, I think of all these storylines. They just come to me sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes, when my husband opens his mouth. You know, um, a lot of my storylines are based on my husband, the relationship type stuff. And I feel very, very blessed that I was able to find my path in life. When I was out of high school, I wanted to be an actress, which, going to Hollywood would have only increased my anxiety twice as fast or more. And it didn't work out for me. But that's the great thing about life is all these choices that you make, they lead you down a path that, you look back and you're like, oh, I should have done something different. And then it surprises you and it turns out completely different than you planned. And, I never would have started writing without my husband. Um, when I moved from Illinois to Minnesota, I was 24 years old. And I often looked back and thought, maybe I should have just stayed there. But then I wouldn't have met my husband. I wouldn't have my kids, and definitely wouldn't have this writing career. He was definitely the inspiration for that. Um, so I feel like, you just have to be grateful for these little forks in the road that take you where you are. And so I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for the readers that, they're in my group, my Crazy Book Lady group. And, they really inspire me. A lot of authors don't like it when readers start saying, we can't wait for the next book. And I'm like, oh my God, the readers are waiting for it. I got to get to work, and it really pushes me. And so, yeah, without sounding mushy, because I'm not a mushy person, I'm just very grateful for every path I've taken and all the people that surround me in the writing community, all the readers that take the time to contact me or join my group or like a post. It just really keeps me going, keeps me motivated. Um, so, thank you all for that. And I'm just going to keep writing. I'm just going to keep going until someone says you've had enough, and then I'll keep writing some more.
Love that. Where's the best place for readers to find your books? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option and the best place to connect with you?
Um, Signed copies can be purchased through my store. A very good friend of mine runs my store for me because I don't know anything about that kind of stuff. She makes my merchandise and all of that stuff. So that can be through my website. Um, and then my book group, Crazy Book Lady group. That's where readers can connect with me on a daily basis, ask me questions. I have a spoiler group if they want to discuss the books in any way. I pop in there whenever I see something. And then my personal website has the first chapter of every book I've written, and links to Amazon where they can purchase the books. Um, so yeah, and then in my book group, every release, I have a trivia day to celebrate the book release, and it has something to do with the book. Sometimes it's totally crazy, like for the self-licking ice cream cone, we did a trivia day about ice cream. Ice cream was not even in the book, but it's in the title. And then I pick three winners, and they receive a swag box and a book that is signed and dedicated to them. And so that's always a lot of fun. It's just great to get in there and give wacky answers. So definitely join that group.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes. That way, everyone can find you. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was great to be here.